Good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. Today is all about learning new things because in human relationships, it's always fun to learn new things about each other or teach each other new things. So we're going to talk about tricks and learning today. Kaya, I had to get a little stash of treats to keep for our demo after I explain everything, and Kaya is very attentively waiting for that. I got some questions about the sweater that I wore on, I think it was the Tuesday video. It says, all you really need are books and dogs. It's from a company called I Heart Dogs. It's in California, and every purchase goes towards feeding shelter animals. That's why I bought it. Needed a nice cozy sweater, and I love gray, so that happened. So to get into training, there's a couple of different ways that you can do the behavior. There is clicker training, which I'm going to explain a little bit, classical conditioning, and then an example of a trick for each species, but I'm just going to wait a minute and see if anybody pops on. Yuko girl. Kaya is freshly clean after her bath yesterday. She's extra fluffy today. Yeah. You extra fluffy? Yeah. Grandma's coming home today. Yay. My mom's getting back from her trip today, so Kaya's very excited. Okay. So, clicker training. Hello. To do clicker training effectively, you have to get your reflexes going very well, because as soon as they do, well, actually it's part of behavior shaping, so I should probably explain that first. Behavior shaping is when you have the current behavior and what you want, and you have to get them to do a little bit of it until they finally reach the desired behavior. So in the terms of a dog that you want them to dance, first you have to get them to stand up on their back legs, and then you have to get them to put their paws up, and then you have to get them to turn around. So that's 3 separate steps to get them to the final dance trick. So that's just an example of how shaping works. Sometimes it's 7 steps, sometimes it's 2, but the idea is to, if the dog even sits back a little bit, you click and give them a reward. And then when they lift their paws up, you click and they get another reward. So you're slowly getting them to do what you want, but only by doing a little bit at a time. So then eventually the dog would only get a click if they stood up with their paws up and turned a little bit. And that would be a click and a reward. So that's how behavior shaping works. Clicker training really only works if your reflexes are very quick and you have to be observing them at all times. So if the cat, for example, the example today we're going to use is teaching your cat to come when they're called. So in that case, you want to pair something to get them to come. So if you want to use their name, that's fine. If you want to use a word like come or here or whatever it may be, you want to pair a sound with it so that they understand, they're already desiring to move towards you. So the example in the cat's case is using a treat bag. So what you do is you make the sound, open the bag, and then they come. And most cats already know this one, so you don't have to worry about that. The second step is to say the pet's name and then open the bag. And then they'll come. And then eventually you just say their name and they'll come if you practice it enough. And this is what's called classical conditioning. I had to take an entire course on animal cognition in my second year, and we talked a lot about Ian Pavlov. and he was the one who did the study with the dogs and the salvation at the sound of the bell. So I'm just going to explain a little bit to you about that before we go on to the next part. So there's 3 parts to classical conditioning. Before the conditioning, you have... You might want to close the door. I'm doing it live. Come here, Kai. There you go. My brother just woke up. The first part is you have an unconditioned stimulus, which is something that elicits a response no matter what. So in this case, it's probably a treat. That the unconditioned stimulus will get you an unconditioned response, meaning you don't have to work for it. They'll do what you want. So usually, in this case, it's drooling, attention, salivating, or in Kai's case, sitting, because she knows she doesn't get anything if she doesn't sit. So those are the unconditioned ones. For classical conditioning to work, you have to pair a neutral stimulus. So if they don't know their name, this is a good way to do it. But in Pavlov's case, he used the sound of I think it's called a tuning fork, but I'm just going to say bell in this case. So then when he made the bell sound, there was no response, which is totally normal. During classical conditioning, what you do is you pair the treat and the bell so that they learn to associate the sound with the response that you want. So in this case, the food and the bell made the dogs drool. And you just repeated it over and over and over again. After classical conditioning, all he had to do was turn the sound of the bell on and the dogs would start to drool. So they kind of associated that sound with, I'm going to get fed. So that's how classical conditioning works. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to post a picture in the comments after this so you can see the visual depiction of how it works. But before I get into how to train or the specific examples, there's 2 important things. Hello. The first is never punish your pet for not doing what you want. The only reason they're not going to do what you want is because you're not explaining to them clearly in their language and in a way they can understand what you want, or they're not interested in training anymore. And usually about 5 minutes at a time, maybe 8 if you have a really smart dog, is the max. So don't sit there and try and train your dog for half an hour, because their attention span will not do very well and you'll get frustrated and then your dog will get irritated. So do it in short groups. You want positive reinforcement instead of punishment. So if your dog does what you want, you can praise them verbally, you can pet them, you can give them a treat. Don't become too dependent on treats, because otherwise if you're out, say, walking your dog and you want them to do something and you don't have any treats, they're not going to do what you want. So don't become food dependent. If you are using treats, you want really smelly ones because it's more likely to attract their attention. And if you use plain ones, they usually get bored or can easily become distracted if another animal walks by. Cats are less food driven than horses and dogs, so that's something else to keep in mind. Cats, if you use pieces of fish, that would probably work pretty well. I heard the cabinet open. But using food when you start is a good way to go about it. So that's clicker training, classical conditioning. Let's see. Okay, so I have a couple of tips. Before you even use the command, if you're training someone, or it's not someone, I guess yes, your cat or dog or horse to do something, when you say a word specifically, what you want to do is not use the word at first. What you want to do is finish shaping the behavior so that when you say the word, they'll do the complete behavior. Otherwise, if you say dance, your dog will get up like this, turn a little bit, and then that's it. So don't use the command until they've reached their final behavior form. Then when you use the word, you get them to do the behavior, then you say the word. And you say good dance, good whatever, or good job, or praise them, then they'll begin to associate that word with the final behavior, which is how you get the full, basically what you want. In terms of recall with dogs, it's important not to use certain commands unless they come all the way to you. So if I'm out walking Kai and I say come, she's a herding dog, so she'll come, run around me, look at me for a minute, and then keep going. But if I say heel, she'll run and sit right beside my foot. So you can use different words for different points of the behavior, but it's important that there's a distinction because otherwise they'll get confused. So, I explained how to teach cats how to come. The important thing for this too is to start with short distances and work your way up. So maybe you're on one side of the kitchen and they're on the other side. And then you'll be able to do it eventually through the whole house, or if your cat darts out the back door, you'll be able to do that. So that's the cat trick. I will post, I think it's an article for the cats and a video for the horses. And then the dogs I'm not going to post because I'm going to demonstrate with Kaya. So, that's cats. Horses. You can teach horses to bow. And this is a good example of behavior shaping. Ooh, excuse me. Because first you want to teach them to lower their head. Because when they bow, for example, at the ends of specific types of shows like dressage or trick shows, you can get your horse to bow with you. So the first thing you want to do is get them to lower their head. So a lot of times, if you want to use hand signals, you're going to have to use hand signals most of the time or else they won't do it. So in the case of Kaya, if I want, the trick I'm going to show you, I have to physically lower my hand to get her to do what I want because we haven't reached the final behavior yet, but I can show you the progress. So for horses, once you get them to lower their head, either by having the treat in your hand and lowering it, or directing your arm down to see what they do. But again, the cues that you use, your animal will pick up on. So when I first got Kaya, part of our puppy training was teaching them to do commands without words. So we would do sit was this, and down was this. So to get them to do it without words is really the higher level above using words, because that means that they're already paying attention to you and they know exactly what hand signal means what. So that's like the golden way up here type of learning. But there's that. So tangent, totally. The second part of teaching your horse to bow is getting them to put their leg out. So I'm going to post the video, but basically to do this, you can either move their leg for them or get them to kind of walk forward a step and then reward them. Although to get them to do both at the same time is, of course, the whole point of the trick. So you'll have to invent hand signals and then do them. Try doing them at the same time. I'm not really sure how that would work, but I will post the video. And if any of you manage to get, it does take a bit of practice, but the challenge today is to work on a trick, start a new trick, or perfect one that they're already quite good at. But just try using the hand signals. So if you post a photo or video in the comments of your pet doing a trick, and if it's a fish, you can get them to swim around their bowl. If it's a bird, you can get them to sing or speak or spin in a circle. Totally up to you. See if I have anything else. I think that's it for what I'm going to say. Kaya wants to demo some tricks with me? Okay. Let's give this a whirl. I got some big beef liver treats for her. Going on the floor. Okay. Let's put you over here. Oh, I know. We got a whole bunch of treats. Okay. See, she automatically sits for me because she knows she doesn't get anything. I'm just going to break this into a smaller piece. Okay. No. Paw. And there's the drool. This one. Good girl. Okay. Oop, there's my pocket. Okay. Stand. Bow. See, sometimes she puts her back end down. So what we're going to do is turn her around. Okay, gentle. Stand. I'm just going to put my hand under her hind end and bow. Because bowing for dogs is a more natural behavior because they play bow when they want to instigate play with other dogs. Kai, sit. Okay, high five? Yeah. High five this one? Good job. Okay. So she's good at some tricks, others not so much. Turn around. Okay. Gentle. Down. So to teach your dog down from standing is a little more difficult. Sit. You can do it from a sit first and then lower your hand. And I didn't even have to say the word. Up. Down. Good job. So the first part of teaching your dog bow, Kai, sit, is getting them to stand up, because usually you get them to sit to get their attention. So to get them to stand, you just move your hand forward until their back end comes up. So that's stand, Kai, relax. Okay, stand and bow. And then you lower your hand until their front end goes down. If their back end goes down, don't worry. Just don't use the word bow until their front or their back end stays up. So when I was practicing this with Kaya at first, I had to keep my hand under her back end or else she would lay down. So stand and bow. Good girl. Down. She thinks I have a treat. It works out quite well. Yeah? You sit. Ready? Kaya, catch. No, stay. Catch. Yay! Good girl. She's pretty smart, but that's how to teach your dog how to bow. It took us, I would say, a couple of months, but I didn't have a lot of one-on-one time to practice with her. To get her to do it without me lowering my hand is very difficult. Kaya, stand, bow. See, she doesn't understand the word on its own. So that's the next step. Stand and bow. No. Come here. Stand and bow. Bow. She did it a little bit that time. That was pretty good. So I'm going to reward that because I'm shaping her going all the way down when I say the word. Come here. Kaya, bow. Bow. Good girl. That time she actually moved my arm down on her own because she wanted the treat so badly. Thank you for your demonstration. Whoop. Okay. So that's Kaya's bow. We're still working on it. If you have any questions about how to get your pet from where they are, because everybody's is at a different place, to where you want them to be, or have problems training them to do certain things, you're welcome to comment below and I can help you out. But again, the challenge today is to post a picture or video of your pet doing a trick or learning a new one. But that is all I have to say for today. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm doing the draw Saturday morning, so if you don't get all the videos in by Friday night, you will not be entered in the draw. And the prize is, I'm still going between two, but I think I know which one I'm going to pick. But I have to go let Kaya outside, so I will see you all tomorrow.